The morning I was supposed to bury my brother, I thought the hardest part of my day would be standing beside his casket. I was wrong. The real blow came in my own living room. When I told my family I couldn't watch the kids that Sunday because I had to attend the funeral, I expected sadness. Maybe even understanding. Instead, my daughter looked straight at me with a coldness I had never seen before and said, "You still have to do it. There's no other choice." In that moment, I felt something inside me stop. I wasn't just shocked by her words. I was shattered by what they revealed. My name is David, and until that Sunday, I believed I knew what pain looked like. I thought pain was the phone call I got at 2:14 in the morning telling me that my older brother Aaron had died in a highway accident. I thought pain was driving to identify his body, or sitting with my mother while she cried into a handkerchief she had kept for years in her purse. I thought pain was seeing my father, a man who had survived bankruptcy, illness, and heartbreak, suddenly looking smaller than I had ever seen him in my life. But I learned that grief has layers, and sometimes the sharpest wound comes not from death, but from the living. Aaron was more than my brother. He was the one who taught me to ride a bike, the one who punched a bully in the nose when I was 12, the one who showed up with soup and medicine when I got divorced and locked myself in my apartment for 3 days. We were only 2 years apart, but he always acted like he was 10 years older. He protected me, advised me, and when my marriage fell apart, he was the one who kept telling me, "Just stay steady. One day the kids will know who was really there." My ex-wife, Melissa, and I had been separated for 3 years. The divorce itself had been ugly, but what came after was worse. There was no screaming anymore, no dramatic fights, no broken dishes. Instead, there was something colder. Requests that were really demands, conversations that were really traps. Every arrangement about the kids felt less like co-parenting and more like a test I was always failing. We had 2 children, Emma, who was 16, and Lucas, who was 8. Lucas still ran into my arms when he saw me. Emma had changed. She used to be my shadow when she was little, always asking me to braid her doll's hair or watch silly dance routines she made up in the kitchen. But after the divorce, she became distant, guarded, and strangely sharp with me. I told myself it was normal teenage anger. I told myself she was confused, hurt, caught in the middle. I kept loving her as quietly as I could. 3 days after Aaron died, Melissa called me. She didn't ask how I was holding up. She didn't say she was sorry. She said she needed me to watch the kids that Sunday because she had something important. I was sitting at my kitchen table, funeral papers in front of me, still choosing a tie for my brother's service. "Melissa," I said slowly, I can't. Aaron's funeral is Sunday morning. I told you that 2 days." There was a pause, then a sharp sigh. "I already made plans." "So did I said, my voice tightening. "To bury my brother. I don't have another option." I closed my eyes. "I can't miss this." "Then take the kids with you. Ask your sister. Ask your mother. Ask anyone." She hung up without another word. I should have known it wouldn't end there. Sunday arrived heavy and gray, the kind of morning where even the sky looks like it's grieving. I was dressed in black, tie knotted, shoes polished, when Melissa knocked on my front door. Not rang. Knocked. Hard. When I opened it, she stood there with Lucas's backpack in one hand and Emma behind her, arms crossed. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "You're taking them," she said, stepping forward like the matter was settled. "No, I'm not. I told you." Before I could finish, Lucas rushed inside. Emma followed more slowly. Melissa set the backpack down and looked at me with that expression she used when she wanted to make me feel unreasonable. "I have somewhere to be," she said. "You'll manage?" I felt heat rise in my chest. "Melissa, this is my brother's funeral. And," she snapped, "life doesn't stop because you're sad." I stared at her. For a second, I honestly could not speak. Then I looked past her at Emma, hoping for something sympathy, discomfort, anything human. Instead, Emma met my eyes and said, "You still have to do it. There's no other choice." I actually thought I had misheard her. "What?" I whispered. She didn't flinch. "Mom has plans. Lucas can't stay alone. You're here, so you have to do it." I stood there, stunned, unable to believe what I had just heard. Not because my daughter was being rude. Teenagers can be rude. Not even because she sounded cold. What broke me was the complete absence of compassion in her voice. Her uncle had died, a man who had brought her birthday gifts, who had once driven across town at midnight to bring her a school project she forgot at my place, and yet, in that moment, he meant nothing to her. Melissa glanced at the clock on the wall. I'm already late. Late for what? I asked. That's none of your business. Then she left. Just like that. The front door closed, and silence swallowed the room. Lucas looked up at me. Dad, are we going somewhere? I turned away so he wouldn't see the tears in my eyes. I didn't know what to say. My brother's funeral was in less than 45 minutes, 20 minutes away. I had no sitter, no neighbor close enough, no time. I called my mother with shaking hands. When she answered, I could hear voices in the background, relatives arriving, chairs moving, the low hum of a house preparing for mourning. Mom, I said, and my voice cracked instantly. David, what's wrong? I told her everything. There was a long silence on the other end. Then she said, very softly, come late if you can, just come. That nearly destroyed me. I looked at Emma. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling on her phone like none of this mattered. Lucas had taken off his shoes and was watching cartoons. My house felt unreal, like I had woken up in someone else's nightmare. I made sandwiches no one really wanted. I changed Lucas into clean clothes in case I found a way to bring him later. I called to people and got no answer. All the while, I kept glancing at the clock, feeling each minute as a fresh betrayal. Around an hour later, my phone buzzed. It was Emma's. She had left it on the kitchen counter when she went to the bathroom. The screen lit up with a message from Melissa. He canceled the funeral. I told you he would. He always chooses guilt over backbone. I froze. Then another message came in. Once he gives in today, he'll give in every time. My hands went cold. I wasn't meant to see that, but I did. And in that instant, everything shifted. This was not about childcare. It was not about plans. It was a test. A cruel, deliberate test. Melissa had used my children to prove that she could still control me. And Emma, my daughter, had not become heartless on her own. She had been taught to see me not as her father, but as a man whose grief was negotiable. Emma came back into the kitchen and saw me holding the phone. For the first time all morning, her face changed. You read that? She asked. Yes. She looked away, and suddenly the confidence drained out of her. Mom said, she said if I didn't back her up, she'd say I never support her. She said you'd be fine. She said funerals are just for old people sitting around crying. I felt anger, but not toward her, not fully. What I felt most was sorrow. Emma, I said quietly, your Uncle Aaron loved you. Her jaw tightened. I know. Then why? Her eyes filled instantly. Because if I don't take Mom's side, she gets mad at me for days. She says you left us. She says you only care when it makes you look good. She says if I'm not strong, she have no one. There it was. The truth. Ugly, painful, and far heavier than the words she'd thrown at me earlier. I sat down across from her. You should never have been put in that position. She started crying then, the hard shell finally cracking. I didn't mean it, she whispered. When I said you still had to do it, I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I nodded slowly, though the wound was still fresh. It still hurt. I know. Lucas wandered in and looked between us, confused. Emma pulled him close. I took a breath and made a decision. I called my cousin Mark, who lived 10 minutes away. This time, he answered. Within 15 minutes, he came and picked up both kids so I could go to the service. By the time I reached the church, the funeral had already begun. I slipped into the back pew. Late, wrinkled, emotionally wrecked. My mother turned and saw me. She didn't ask why I was late. She just reached for my hand. After the burial, I stood by Aaron's grave and apologized out loud. Not because I had abandoned him, but because I had let myself become the kind of man who believed he had to earn permission to grieve. That night, Emma came to my apartment alone. She stood at the door with red eyes and said, "I'm sorry, Dad." I let her in. We talked for nearly 2 hours. Real talk. The kind we hadn't had in years. About divorce. About pressure. About manipulation. About how children can love both parents and still be harmed by one parent's bitterness. She admitted Melissa had been leaning on her emotionally, making her feel responsible for adult problems. She admitted she had started repeating things she didn't fully believe just to keep peace at home. I listened. Then I told her something I wish I had said much earlier. You do not have to carry your mother's anger for her, and you do not have to punish me to prove you love her. She cried harder than before. Things did not heal overnight. Real life never works that way, but that day became a turning point. I stopped saying yes out of fear. I started documenting everything. I set boundaries. And most importantly, I fought not just for time with my children, but for truth inside the family. We still had left. Aaron used to tell me that the strongest people are not the ones who never break. They are the ones who break, see clearly, and finally refuse to bend in the wrong direction. On the day of my brother's funeral, I lost more than time. I lost the last illusion that keeping quiet would protect everyone, but I also gained something, the beginning of honesty between me and my daughter. And sometimes, that beginning is what saves everything. Some wounds come from tragedy, others come from the people who should have protected your pain instead of testing it. I went into that Sunday thinking I was saying goodbye to my brother. I never expected to also confront the quiet cruelty that had been growing inside my own family. But in the end, the moment that shattered me also opened the door to the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts before it heals, but it still heals.